many podcasts have you done?
Apparently 0.
We've recorded on this platform like 30 times.
Have I
We might have
missed it?
turned off countdown though, JT.
Okay.
To be fair, I think I turned
Oh.
it off early on. I'm pretty sure I turned it off really early on.
After 20, you'd think I'd notice, but
Well, y'all, I'm very excited to have my guests here today, Phil and JT from Pushin Performance. We have been planning this for quite some time, but life gets busy. Your DMs get crowded if you're popular like they are. So I'm just very happy I could resurface in your DMs. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, let's do a quick intro. So I'm just gonna go on like order of my screen for this. So Phil, you're right next to me on my screen. So do you want to tell me about yourself?
Yeah,
Tell the audience.
I'll keep it quick. I'm Phil Nash. I'm one half of the amateur coaching podcast Pushin Performance. I work for Exos on our coach training and performance innovation team. Been in the coaching industry for about 10 years now, which makes me feel like I'm 100 years old. Which is one thing that I realized the other day is a lot of people duck out of the industry at like year 4. So if you've been in for 10, like it's almost like a life sentence. And yeah, I've coached basically almost every population from youth athletes to Gen Pop to pro athletes in multiple sports to 60-year-old people wanting to get fit so they could make it back from a hip replacement. So yeah, a little bit of everything in there.
Before we get to you, JT, I heard that as 6-year-old people who got hip replacements and want to get back to being fit. And I was like, 6-year-olds?
60. Sorry, I gotta enunciate here. It's my mic because JT sent me the bad mic. So you're real JT,
I'll
yeah, clearly.
All right, JT, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, you call me JT. Let's see, 10 years also in the coaching biz. I want to say 10. It's probably more like 13, but I always tell people like I just started to realize I know what a little bit more now, like sometime last year. But nonetheless, I think just my experience in the coaching industry is kind of funny. Like early on, I'd had more exposure to like younger athletes, pros, when I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, to like where I am now. I have a better idea what I'm doing, like, training more of the Gen Pop / weekend warriors, if you will, athletes in that realm. So yeah, coaching, and I just can't stop thinking about it.
I love that. And so Phil, you just moved back to Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh.
Yeah. No.
It starts with a P. Philadelphia.
Yeah, not Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Yeah.
Okay.
No, never.
It started with a
P.
Edit that one.
Okay, got it.
Throwing a lot of shade at Pittsburgh. I hope there's some Yinzers listening, but yeah, no, never Pittsburgh.
Yinzers?
It's a whole
Is this
it's a whole language
football?
out there. No, it's a whole language out there in Pittsburgh. They say, instead of saying like y'all, or we say yous in Philadelphia, they say yous guys. They say yin.
Man.
Some do. Yinzers. So they say yins.
Oh.
Like what are yins doing today? It's like, what are y'all doing today?
Oh. That seems still inclusive, like y'all.
It's very inclusive. Ahead of their time. They were ahead of their time, for sure.
JT, are you in the Bay Area?
I am in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area. Yeah.
Cool.
Yin's somewhere else, so.
There you go. See?
Good job. Yeah. Very applicable.
Hey, try.
Steal that. You can steal that one for sure.
Well, so I want to start today with a little icebreaker. Super simple. We'll start with JT this time. Are you a morning person? And if you are, what's your morning routine? Super quick.
Morning or night, you're saying?
Yes.
Got it. I prefer to do things in the morning, but I'm really fighting my body because I know I like to do things like late at night, but morning, just because all the YouTube influencers tell me to do things in the morning. So Um, my morning routine, I've been trying to create like I've been trying to get out of a good morning routine versus a bad one. So I think there's always a spectrum with everything, right? So optimally, I'm just gonna go over that. I like getting up early, like super early, like 5, 4. If I'm like, all right, we're gonna get some stuff done. Um, and it's
Wow.
mainly for my roommate with short legs. So it's to get his stuff done, and then I like to just reply to things early on, just because I know people won't reply till later. So it just kind of cleans that out of my plate. I don't have to worry about responses. So yeah, wake up early, reply, do things, and then start podcasting and just thinking about that.
To clarify, JT's short roommate is his dog. It's not being
Yes,
me.
my apologies. I'll clarify next
I was
time.
like, I can see where this could go wrong if people don't know you have a corgi.
I apologize. It's my little corgi here, so I take
He's
care
so
Oh
of him.
my
cute.
goodness.
No, you gotta take your roommate out. Yep. Um, Phil, what
Oh
about you?
man. JT said I really get straight to it, huh? I really get straight to podcasting. Every day I get straight to it. I'm a morning person as well. I don't wake up as early as JT does. JT really on that Mark Wahlberg 3 a.m. cold plunge
The
meditation
lock in, bro.
enlightenment. I wake up, walk the dog. Dogs she is always itching to get right outside. So I walk her. She's a monster. Train, then make breakfast for me and my partner. Um, Something super simple, something easy. Creatures of habit. And then I try to look at all of my notifications, Instagram, email, all that stuff. That's probably the most influencer-esque thing that I do. I try to not respond to anything until after I'm done, like going out with the dog,
Mm,
training, breakfast, all that stuff. I try to be like super present during that time, at least as best I can. Start the day on a good note. Because I know if I start looking at email, if I start thinking about the show or show notes or something like that, I'm thinking about work, then I'll just get sucked into doing that. Or like if I go on Instagram right away, I'll spend like 30 minutes on Instagram, and then I feel like
yep.
really overwhelmed and behind. So yeah, that's probably the most trendy thing I do.
I
Push
like
off the
how,
notifications.
yeah, I actually just started doing that too. But I like how both of y'all are so different. You know, it's like JT will get his stuff done with that, be done with it so he can be productive throughout the day. Then, like you, Phil, it's more of like being more present in the morning and then getting to it afterwards. So I think that's nice to hear because a lot of us think that one or the other is wrong. So if I
Yeah.
like do it first thing in the morning, my brain's gonna like, I'm gonna deteriorate and I'm gonna be, I don't know, not great. And then it's vice versa. So I think it just depends on the person because you
Yeah.
both are very successful. Um,
Ah.
Thank you
yeah.
for saying that. Appreciate
Yeah, thank you. We'll
What
be nice. We'll be nice to ourselves on this show. We're nice to
Yeah.
ourselves here. So yes, thank you.
One thing about my podcast is my guests get hyped up. Like you're here so I can gas you up. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. This is about to
We
be
should have
part
came on
one then.
earlier.
I know.
Yeah. We're doing this every week. This is wonderful.
I mean, I'm just a text away, y'all.
I love it. I
You
love
know that. If you ever feel bad about yourself, just text me and I'll make you feel good. So,
Noted.
I mean, y'all are like in the category of people I know, like smart, like strength and conditioning coaches. Like you're in that category of people. So,
I mean,
Appreciate
you're one of the reasons that we started this show for sure. Like you're one of the voices who was like, "No, you guys are smart." I almost said you guys smart. You guys are smart, and I would listen to
you
I
guys
would
smart.
listen I would listen to the show. So like
I mean,
thank
Yeah.
you. You are one of the reasons for sure why Push and Performance exists. So thank you.
man, thank you. That means a lot. And I
That's
do
what you said on
say,
the intro.
yeah, I still listen like when I can. I'm like still keeping up to date. So, because life can get busy, but I've still been enjoying catching up, like keeping
Thank you.
up with you all.
Hey,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a
Thank
Yes.
lot
you.
of
We
things out
appreciate
there,
that.
so we don't expect everybody to be
Yeah, it's hard.
staying with us,
It's
especially
hard.
podcasting.
Well, I was gonna say there's a statistic that there's like 2 million podcasts in the world, and only 1% make it past 21 episodes. So I want to congratulate y'all for that.
Hey, there we go. Love that. 2 million.
You're
I never seen that number.
There's a lot.
I don't
It's insane.
Yeah, I don't know how true it is. It wasn't like scientific, but it was a thread. So we're gonna go with it. Like it was like a tweet or whatever.
It's
Basically a
interesting though.
peer-reviewed
Like
journal.
there's not a lot of, like, if I talk to people, like there's not a lot of people who actually listen to podcasts. Like, generally speaking, in the world, it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
So since we're on this topic of podcast, I wanted to hear from both of you your takeaways from it, because you all started this how long ago?
Half a year. We're at 23, so yeah, almost 6 months ago, which is insane.
6 months.
That is.
When was that our goal, JT?
What's that?
Goal one. Goal one was post the show for 6 months every week.
That was
Wow.
We're that was like our that's like our only goal. Goal 2 was a year. Those are our only.
Yeah.
That's literally there's like nothing else that we're like we'll figure everything else later. Like these are the only things that matter. Can we just put the show out consistently?
Right.
That's the hardest part. Like, what do I talk about? So yeah, let's talk about like how do you guys figure out what to talk about, because your topics are always so good.
Man,
Thank you.
like, let me to kind of jump in there. I think it's so easy. That's like the easiest part, I think, and the easiest part in terms of like from the whole thing, as all the things we do from podcasting is like getting a topic. And I think that's just our general curiosity that creates that. But I think the reason why we're up to 6 months, and for me, how that is easy is because it feels like systematized way of doing things. If if Phil wasn't
I'm a
like here,
psychopath.
so he's locked
It's
in
okay.
with literally how things run in the background. So I'm just like over here, hey, we should talk about this. Hey, we should talk about that. So like you said earlier, like we're different in a lot of ways, and I think that works out in a lot of ways too. So a lot of lessons learned, but I think just having systems, which I'm learning from Phil, is like key to anything, but specifically uh, podcasting it. And if you want to be part of that 1%, you got to keep going, and how you keep going is doing the same thing.
Yeah, right. It's like what can you do consistently? And for us, surprisingly, like we had no idea what we were jumping into getting into this, right? Like no idea what it's going to be like putting content out. No idea, because it's something we both have never really done before. No idea what it's going to be like, putting a podcast out in the world, or what that really takes to do consistently. So that surprisingly has been pretty easy for us. I think the biggest thing recently has been how can we make the quality of the show better, the quality of the conversation better. But like JT said, like it's been like weirdly easy to come up with topics, and that's one of the really cool things about having like two hosts. Like I can only imagine what it's like Emma running solo and coming up with everything solo, because it's having, and you can always shoot ideas to us, if you're if you need
I'll take you up
topic
on that.
ideas, bounce some ideas off of us. But it's a lot of like stuff that we just like, whatever fires us up is something we're going to talk about. And that's kind of been like, instead of thinking about what would our potential archetype of a listener, or the people we know listen to the show, like to listen to, it's like, what are we going to be fired up about? What are we going to have a really cool conversation about that we enjoy? And then know from there that someone's going to get value out of that, right? Like the people we want listening to the show are going to get value out of that. Like like-minded individuals are going to get value out of that. So it's a lot of like sending each other stuff on Instagram, and then like if we go back and forth on text for a little bit, then it's like, all right, this is a hit. Or doing events, and just the questions we get at events is a huge thing for us. Like just like a general questions, general comments that coaches will make when we're teaching, makes it really, really easy then to just pull a topic out and unpack that on the show. Because if someone's asking a question at an event, like it takes a lot to raise your hand at an event and ask a question. Like it can be really scary, and so it's probably safe to assume that someone else is having that same question. So yeah, that's kind of our process right now.
I love that. And just like to go back to the content creation and putting yourself out there, like this is an art, and putting your art out there is very scary, because it's a very vulnerable moment of, these are my thoughts and I don't know what other people think about my thoughts, but now they're going to like know, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a very personal thing that you're sharing with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really cool that you guys have been able to do this, together and be such a good team. I will say it's very hard by myself because
I can
sometimes
only
I'm like,
imagine.
man, I don't know what I want to talk about. So I think in order to be successful, it's good that, JT, it seems like you're like the flowy guy, and then you have Phil to like have some like kind of guardrails. Um, and I think it's cool that you guys take what you've learned from like different events that you've done, like the mentorships, for example. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, and you've both taught those, right? JT, I met you at one of the mentorships. And I think you were filming, but are you teaching them now?
I don't really teach them. Phil is the
JT
guy
teaches.
I teach, like it's more of like a facilitating conversation, and for me, like that's podcasting, right? As
Right.
you right
Yeah.
now, you're facilitating conversation, so there's an art to that as well,
Mm.
which I'll take the skill to be present, right? That's all of that is needed here. So I think for me, like from the mentorships, it's how do I see what is being taught and see like some gaps, and now take it back to on site to help fill those gaps or continue to teach those. So it's like
Mm.
an extension, um, from the educators on the mentorship side, and now just bringing it back to on site to going back on the ground.
Yeah, and I love how it's also very easy to digest. I will say, like you're not throwing around these like crazy words or making, like you made a post about like post activation potentiation PAP, and it was just very easy to understand. And so I can
Mm.
really appreciate that, because sometimes people want to just throw around words and sound really smart, but majority of us just want to understand what the point is.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that a
I
lot.
still do that though. I still throw around. I still throw around big words, because I think it's still necessary to know
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
understand those words, right? And then I think as an educator, like what Phil does, very nicely, and like yourself too, Emma, is you still simplify, but you're not reducing like the integrity of what you're
Mm.
simplifying, right? So,
Mm,
there's something to teach somebody concept to like a 5-year-old kid, but then there's like let's respect somebody's career and knowledge first to
Yeah.
and not talk to them like a little kid. You know what I mean?
mm,
So I think there's that.
true.
Yeah. I think about like there's two models, two quotes from two scientists who are both absolute dogs. Einstein and Richard Feynman. But like
His
Einstein's quote was
dogs.
like dogs.
Dogs.
Just dog of
Absolute
blokes.
dogs.
Absolute dogs. Don't look into it. Just bad guys. But Einstein said all things should be said as simple as possible, but not simpler. So like to JT's point about integrity, like I think you easily can and we do oversimplify things in this field, right? Like, and some things are oversimplified and helpful. Some things are oversimplified and just flat out wrong. But like, how can we teach coaches and teach our clients, our athletes, things in a way that's simple enough that's in their language that they understand it, but not so simple that it's like just straight up wrong and useless. So for something like post activation
Right.
potentiation, that was JT's post. It was great. That's fun for me because I get to read. I don't know what's coming, so it's fun for me to read
Yeah.
those
Oh, that's
posts as
cool.
well. I very much enjoyed that. JT, I don't know if I texted you about it, but it was bomb. But with that, it's like, how can we explain this in a way that it's actually actionable, right? So now I can take it and
Mm,
use it, or take it and not use it, because maybe it doesn't make sense for me. Versus if I just start talking about like the nervous system at the highest level, and then it's like, sweet, that sounds really cool, but like, what the hell are we actually talking about? And I think like some
right.
people will do that intentionally or unintentionally because it feels good to sound smart and it feels good to use big words, at least myself in the past. But also it's like a good tactic to convince people you're right
Yeah.
without having to like have any substance in what you're doing and saying. But like that's kind of one of the scary things about simplifying is everyone understands it. So or at least more people understand it well, so they can start to poke holes in it. They could start to, talk, at least say like when it might not be useful, right? Or sort of disagree a little bit
Right.
more. But that's kind of the whole point about putting stuff out there. And one of our kind of missions with the show is generating critical thought, generating conversation, knowing that like, yeah, we don't all have to do the same thing. There's a lot of means to get to the same end, but like, here's what we like to do, or here's what we think. And, JT's always trying to get people on, or talking about getting people on that we just straight up don't agree with, but like just to hear.
Oh, I like
That's been
that.
JT's mission recently. He's
Would
been
it be
he's been calling Joel Seedman
Anyone you can
daily.
think
I was gonna
about.
say Joel Seedman.
Yeah.
I was thinking of how I can incorporate Joel Seedman on this episode, and it's already
He'll
come
come
up
in.
once. So
It will come up.
Where-
It'll come up. Don't worry. It'll come up. David Weck came. JT and I were in a meeting the
oh
other day,
yeah.
and someone brought up David Weck, and I almost had to turn my camera off. I was laughing so hard, and they didn't understand. They didn't understand what was going on. But there's like a whole thing. They didn't know the whole conversation that JT and have weekly.
Yeah, I did. I was listening to one of your episodes, and David Weck came up. And it was with Nabil. Yep, with Nabil. But going back to like super high level or going too simple, I really like how you both have said like somewhere in the middle. And I will not lie, like when I was hardcore in my FRC days, I was like saying all this stuff that just sounded, I knew it so well high level that I was excited to share very high level, like sounding cool. But there's also value, like you both have just said, of meeting in the middle and not, taking away the integrity of what it truly means. And I do like how you guys have such a neutral, well, sometimes you have like really firm opinions on some people, but how you're very neutral and how you present the information so people can make, like you kind of already said, decisions for themselves if they want to use it or not. So I think your podcast is a great tool, I think, just for like your goal is to make it easier for people to understand like concepts and generate thoughts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We try. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. I mean, that's learning, right? Like learning is you have to be an active participant in the process to actually learn something, to actually understand something, and then implement something new. So thinking about coaching, right? Like a lot of people are just mimicking, which is fine, right? That's how we all kind of start. But a lot of coaches don't progress past that stage, and people are forming opinions for them rather than having opinions formed by themselves. So that's what we want to do is make people an active participant in their own learning process by trying to not always remaining neutral. More than JT, I think sometimes I get really fired up and I just start screaming and then forget what I say on the show. And then my like in-laws would be like, "Why are you cursing so much?" And I'm like, "I'm just getting way too comfortable on this show." But yeah, how can we present all the facts, present all the sides, and then sit back and say, "What do you think?" And hopefully have people walk away again like actually learning something and not just copying what JT and I do, because we are very far from always being right.
It's passionate. You're passionate, Phil.
Passion, fire,
Eating. You're eating. I think when you say that, now that we're talking about it, like to simplify things, I think we're basically going through the Dunning-Kruger effect with people. Like, okay, here's this thing that seems very simple, then you learn about it, and then when we talk all these big words, we're stuck up here. And then when you got to simplify it, you kind of bring it back down, right? So it's that in conversation, right? In our heads and in communication. How do you say what we think it is, tell people what it actually is, and then simplify and meet them to what kind of where they were.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah. I definitely agree of like, and this kind of goes back to college, and I'm sure you all can kind of agree with this. I don't know if y'all remember anything from college, but I certainly don't.
Is that because we're
right.
old? Was that an old joke?
Both.
A lot of both.
Back in the 90s, college.
The 90s were such a time. But it's just because we weren't practicing anything. Like we would go to school and we learned all these things, read all these textbooks, and just this is kind of just to your point of, at least for me, I can speak for myself. I don't remember shit. Like maybe some stuff, but for the most part, I don't remember anything. And I did most of my learning after college when I got into the real world, which
Yeah.
I'm sure it's most same for most coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, to be honest, I was hammered the entire time, so I'm just gonna
same.
keep it a buck. So I was pretty hammered the entire college
Why do you think
experience.
that is though? Why do you think that like the things that we learn, let's just call it kinesiology, if or exercise science, we're in
Mm.
there for 4 years
Mm.
or 2, whatever. Why do most people coming out of that say they don't apply the things that they learned?
I think some of it's because it has to be to a certain degree, right? Like I look at most undergrad programs as giving you a really strong bullshit detector, right?
Mm.
So if I fundamentally understand anatomy and I fundamentally understand physiology and I fundamentally understand physics and chemistry and biology, I understand all of these things. Now, when I'm listening to Huberman and he says X, Y, and Z, I can be like, well,
Mm.
that's not quite how this system works, right? Like, that's not quite how this works. That doesn't make sense. Like, you're violating these principles. But I think that's an issue because that's all of what most programs are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they send you out in the real world and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, I gotta
Yeah.
do what now? Like, I gotta what? Like, you want me to, I gotta, like, I remember going to the first, like, interview and being like, this is nothing. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. I've never wrote a program outside of Olympic weightlifting. I don't know what's
Yeah.
happening. I don't
Man,
know what's going on at all.
we want to
Like
talk
I had
about
zero skills.
programming. If you want to talk about
Yeah, right.
programming, like look at, I used to write all my workouts. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and I would just write them in my phone notes. And it was, I look back, I think I still have it actually.
I have mine too.
They need those to be released.
Ooh.
Well, five ninety
How to
nine, $5.99 for a month.
how to overtrain. Just look at my old workouts.
Literally. But it's like I think, and that's and it's easy I know it's easy to throw stones when I have no dog in the fight and I'm not working in any university sector as a professor, but like I think that'd be cool to see as far as changes go, to make things a little bit more applied. Like, hey, let's have a personal training / strength and conditioning major where yes, you learn biomechanics and biology and chemistry, anatomy and physiology. All that stuff is the base layer. And then, we can dive in and learn more about communication. We can learn more about programming, learn more about actually coaching and coaching theory, because that's a science as well. Learn more about business and marketing and personal finance, because that's something that you're going to have to utilize. Like,
Right.
I think that'd be really, really cool. That might be like a 30-year program, but like trying to pack so much stuff in. But I think it'd be cool to see things move that way at least.
I love that. I think I could have gotten so much value out of learning how to program correctly. It
Mm.
honestly wasn't until I started working at Exos that I was like, okay, I feel like it's also a continuous evolution of
Yeah.
how do you program, because you're always changing your mind,
Yeah.
and what you like.
It,
It's
Um,
like
I
that for a
think,
lot of coaches.
yeah,
yeah.
I think it's part of that too. Is as you start to understand a little bit more the nuances of people,
Mm-hmm.
you'll s- you'll change more. You'll make more adjustments. And early on in college, you don't. There's no nuance, right? It's like this is the foundational things that you should be having going into your career industry, and then as you have these continuing learnings, you understand nuances of what goes in that, and then you're like, oh, let me change that now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me,
Mm-hmm.
not everybody's femurs are, maybe I shouldn't say that, but not everybody's feet or gait is like very similar. So that now changes how they engage with the ground. That's maybe why we should change their bilateral work to some unilateral work. So all those things you're like, I wouldn't have thought about that before. Like, this is how a foot is, and then you think
Mm-hmm.
that's how foot is later on, but then you understand like the problems with that comes within that. So it's the nuances, right? That we have to
Yeah.
continue to learn and then match that with what we at least think is foundational and find those gaps and close those gaps through the programming.
Absolutely. I was gonna say I'm into feet stuff, but that sounds real bad. But
Nah,
I've been like,
JT's a huge foot guy.
I
100%.
have to
yeah,
be.
I've been.
I have to be right
I
now.
know. I want to get. This is coming up. Don't worry. This is gonna be part of the conversation. I kind of want to switch gears into. So we've been talking about. We kind of moved into coaching already. So I have a few questions about communication. Like, have you ever had to give a client tough love before?
What do you mean? What is tough love?
Have you ever had like set them aside and just have a like more of a maybe not a stern conversation, but you had to be real with them? It's like it's not always
Mm.
joking around, fun and games. It's like, okay, if they don't really want to be there, for example, like you need to have a chat with them. Or no, have you never had that happen to you?
Yeah, I
Well, for
think.
me,
Oh, what are you doing, JT?
just because
What
it's
are
a
you doing?
just because it's a interesting subject. It's like I'm trying to not eat right now. I'm not trying to be too passionate about this. Maybe I should, but
Go off.
it's
Go off,
it's
Go
JT.
off.
different. It's different for every client. Like for me, I in the past I've been more of like, you don't want to be here, don't be here. Like in my head though, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's I had that's not the best way to approach
That was
it.
so sassy.
Zest comes out, bro. Zest comes out. And it was more that was because of my ego, right? So I like I wouldn't put him aside. So to answer your question, I wouldn't be like, okay, don't come here then,
Like,
right? In my head, and
right.
like what I would say in my head, those actions would come out, and then. So if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. That's why we're not together anymore. But
It's not you, it's me.
yeah. To answer kind of your question a little bit more simply, because I'm curious to hear what Phil's going to say about this, is it's a coaching conversation, right? There's a reason why
Mm.
they're not there, and there's a reason why whatever we think they feel about this to even have a conversation of giving tough love. It's a coaching conversation. How do we ask better questions to understand what actions are and behaviors are showing, right? So it's just a matter of questions. Like my ego was blind, was covering me up, so I wasn't able to ask the better questions to help them, because that's
Yeah.
actually the goal. Not
Yeah.
them not coming, or them coming to me is not the goal. Is how do I help them, right? So
Right.
that's what I would say to that dude back in 10, 15 years ago, was messing people
20.
up. So
20 years ago.
long
Oh
back
my
in my
goodness.
time.
Yeah, no, it's who you serving, right? Are you serving yourself? Are you serving the client? And how can we make sure that we are truly client centric? And that's by removing our ego from the equation, what it does for us out of the equation. I've definitely had these conversations, like tough love type conversations with clients, athletes. I feel like it's not something I've been great at throughout my career. I think one thing, kind of similar to what JT was saying, that I'm trying to be better at now is be like, hey, like I'm not the one for you type
Mm,
stuff. Like just because I know about hypertrophy, I'm not gonna write a great bodybuilding program. Like I'm just not. It's not. I'm
right.
not passionate about that. I'm not good at that. I've never really done that. I can help you. I can help you gain some muscle. I can help you lose weight, like change your body composition. But if you want to look like a physique athlete, I'm not the guy for you. If you want to be, compete in endurance sport, I'm probably not the guy for you. Like I'm trying to be better, way better about that, more selective about the programs I like and kind of what my niche is.
Mm-hmm.
But the only when I was reading over the notes, I mean, the one thing that jumped out to me was a conversation I had with a NFL free agent when I was working for Exos in North Carolina, where we literally talked like the entire session, and it ended with him quitting football. Like, and it was like
Whoa.
tough. Like I mean, NFL free agency is brutal. Like if you're a free
Mm-hmm.
agent in the league, you're bouncing around teams, you're flying to Kansas City, working out, you're coming back training for a week. You're flying in Indianapolis, you're doing a workout, you're flying back training for a week. Like it's you don't really know what's coming. especially for guys who are in and off practice squads, in and out of camps, on and off teams. So it can be a really stressful environment for them. And for this athlete in particular, he used to be super happy and excited, but as the year went on and as he continued to be a free agent, because some guys we would have for 3 days and some guys we'd have for 3 months. And this particular athlete, he was in for a while, and as the year went on, he started having less and less fun training, less and less passion, showing up later and later, right? Being shorter and shorter temper wise and emotion wise, and talking more about spending more time with his family and wanting to make his family bigger, and starting more and more talking about his business ideas and going back to school and all this stuff. And I was like, hey man, like, I know you love this game, but it sounds like it's time for you to move on, and it sounds like you want to move on, but you're just not ready to take that step because it's horrifying, because all you've
Mm-hmm.
known is football your whole life, and you played football at a high level your entire life. So that was a really cool, myself, my manager, and this athlete, just to sit down and talk for hour, 2 hours, and everybody's crying. Everybody,
Yeah.
but it's a hard conversation to say, bro, like, I think you're done. Like, I think it's over. But it ended up being super valuable, because again, that's like the opposite of an ego thing for us. It's always better to have more athletes training with us,
Yeah.
and selfishly, I
Yeah.
want to work with more people. But it was, what, this isn't the right space for you. And seeing the value of that conversation, and seeing what that realization did for that person, like, was really, really cool, and a really big eye-opening experience for me as a younger coach. So, not that I'm great at having those conversations, but it now I like really see the true value in having a discussion like that.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think. Oh, go ahead, JT, if you want to go off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It was just
Um,
thinking.
I was gonna say, I think that's why I wanted to talk about this, is because it's uncomfortable. You're never really prepared to have those tough conversations. And again, like, asking the right questions and putting your ego aside is hard. I have
Hmm.
also had a time where I had a kid who did not want to be there. His dad signed him up, and
Yeah.
he was just there and not give me anything. And at that point, I was a younger coach, and I would get very frustrated because I'm like, what am I doing? But now I'm a little bit more older, more mature, and I know there's some clients that just really don't want to be there at all, but they're doing it because they need to do it.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of a separate of, like, you talking to your NFL football player, being like, hey, like, for him, it was kind of the end of his career. These are people who need to move, and they don't want to. They have no motivation. They have no
Yeah.
intrinsic motivation. And it can be frustrating, but then this is why I wanted to ask you guys this, is because it's like, how do we as coaches put our ego aside and not get frustrated at them? Like, they're trying
Right.
because they're showing up, they're paying, but it's like, you need to get a little as a coach, you need something to work with.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, I guess I wanted to open this conversation up just for, like, other coaches to think about too, of like, I'm sure everyone's had this situation
Yeah.
of like, what do I do?
What I was gonna say is, like, when I think back now, like, a lot of the conversations that I should have had, that you guys are both referring to now, is because a client was late. Client's not showing up. A
Hmm.
client's not doing X, Y, and Z. They're not texting me, in time. And for me, I'm like, I would get offended. Like,
Hmm.
what the heck's happening? I thought they wanted to train, right? And then I think, like, the whole ego conversation comes to mind, is it's not about you. Like, they're not,
Hmm.
like, if I'm training with Coach Emma, I'm not gonna be late because I want to be late because of Coach Emma. Like, otherwise I wouldn't be paying you. Why would that be true?
Yeah.
Right? So it's because there's some stuff happening you don't know, and the fact that you don't know is because now you're starting to just put blame on them, right? So it goes back to asking better questions. I think we as coaches expect them to show up because they want to train, when, like, that's
Hmm.
part of the reason. And depending on what sector you're in, like, specifically the Gen Pop, like, yeah, they're here to train, but they're they don't think of training as much as you do. So there's probably other things happening. So we should ask better questions in order, like, to help them be there for the session and also like help them be better. Right? Like
Yeah.
a
Right.
lot of my career transition or my thought process transition to people would often like say, I can't come in, my back hurts. Right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, all right, sorry, feel better. Now I'm trying to find better ways to hopefully have my clients come in and or text me and say, hey, my back hurts. Can I see you? Right? Or my
Mhm.
I don't feel well. I think we need a session. Like those kind of things I want to transition into, and it takes there's an art to that, and it's basically proving your value. Right? How do you continue to prove your value so that you're there to help them, right? In a
Yeah.
lot of ways, not just teaching them how to do 5x5, or whatever all that stuff is. So yeah, it's an ego thing at the end of the day. And how do you just unpack that?
Yeah. It's like what you're saying, JT. For me, it feels like it's boiling down to like empathy and responsibility. Like from an empathy standpoint, I don't think we can truly understand what our clients are going through, especially as a young coach. Like if I'm 22 and I'm working with one of my clients was a 40-year-old divorcee, like going through a messy ass divorce, 2 kids. Like, what the hell do I know about that? Nothing. Like
Mhm.
I can't give you any actionable advice here. I got nothing for you. But I can sit down and listen. Like
Right.
I can empathize, I can ask better questions, and I can help make more realistic goals. I can help you feel more confident. I can help you feel move a little bit better, right? Like there are some things I can do, there's some things I can't do. But then with those things, like what's in my realm of control? What can I take responsibility for? And I think a lot of coaches will say like, oh, whatever. This client shows up, every other day, they suck. Or this client's 5 minutes late every day, they suck. Like I want to work with people who don't stink. Like, well, is there anything that you can do that you can take responsibility for, that you can hold yourself accountable for and make programmatic changes that help this person either show up more often, like JT said, see your value, to show them value, maybe show up on time, or maybe show up and do their own warm up and jump right into the class. You don't have to think about it. Like, can we educate? Can we motivate? Like, what things can we take responsibility for and do more to help them see the value, to help them learn, to help them, basically find a program that fits within their lifestyle or find something they enjoy doing? Because it might not be personal training. It might not be a group class. It might be playing a sport. It might be going to Pilates. Hell, I don't know. But it's like, let's find something that you like to do and maybe that'll help.
Right. I think to go off of what you're saying too, we have this picture of what they need to do as
Mhm.
coaches. Like we know they need to do these exercises and we know they need to progress this way. But if they genuinely hate it, like
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
only lead someone to do something so far to the point of like they're not having a good time or they genuinely just don't want to be there or do it. So that was
Yeah.
something alarming to me recently where I'm like, I need to reframe my thought process here. Like they don't, Jimmy is not name's not Jimmy, but like Jimmy doesn't need to be doing, safety bar squats if he absolutely hates it. Like we will do something else. But for the
Yeah.
longest time I was like, we have to move this way. And so I think to both of your points, it's figuring out what they like and getting out of, our way of what we think they need. So it's kind of giving them a little bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about like working with soccer athletes and they were just like hated doing wall drills. Like any
Mm.
wall drill for acceleration
Oh,
or change
really?
direction, whatever. They were just like, "This is stupid, coach. Like, this is so boring." They're all like touching. Everyone's always, kids are always touching each other, punching each other, tackling each other. I'm like, stop, no touching. But they're having a horrible time, and it's either one, can I explain to these 12-year-olds the value, or two, can I find something that's more fun that has a similar outcome? Probably gonna go with the
Right.
latter. So like, what can I do that's more fun, that has a similar outcome, that allows them to enjoy, them to see some value, them to want to be there. And then for me, I'm giving them the training stimulus that I think they need, right? So it's not always going to be a 1-for-1 thing. Like, that's a great, perfect theoretical example, but like, how can we find something that's close enough that they actually and enjoy doing? And then hopefully over time, again, can we educate our clients? Can we educate our
Mm.
athletes to see the value? And I love what JT said, like, then to want to be like, hey, I'm struggling with this technically. Like, can you help me? Or like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm dealing with some discomfort here. Can you help me? Versus, this is stupid. I'm not doing this, or I'm not feeling it today. I'm out of here.
I'm
Yeah.
out.
And like with specifically on that note with the Gen Pop clients, like, you know, if they come to us for body composition or increasing strength, like there's things that we know that they should be doing, right? Resistance training at the end of the day, right? And it's not like, hey, you should go be doing mindful meditation every day. Like that's not really going to get them to lose weight essentially, but
Hmm.
it can still be in the conversation of that maybe there's some pieces that are missing to
Yeah.
to help move that needle, right? And we know resistance training is somewhere in that,
Hmm.
you know, need to do things. What does it actually look like? When does it actually fit? And how can we as coaches do a better job of telling the story of like, this is actually something that hopefully you will be liking to do. And
Hmm.
then it's going to be our job to find ways to actually get them to like it, right? And it's that relationship of that conversation. Coaching is like, it's coaching is talking to somebody and then getting them to where they want to be, right? And how do you both do that together in um, with the understanding that you can help them, like what Phyllis
Hmm.
said earlier. Sometimes you just can't, and you got to refer out, get them that word,
Yeah.
Yep.
you know. And that's part of my issues right now. Sometimes I feel like I could help everybody. I'm like, maybe not me. I can't. Sorry.
That's the hardest part I think about being a coach is like when you're not everyone's cup of tea, but you just have
Mm.
to understand that you are here to help. Not you can't help everyone. And
Hmm.
and it goes both ways for you and the client. Like you don't want to stay with someone just cuz you want to make it work. It's like a bad relationship. Like you want to see that person flourish, right? And so I really love both of your points here just to kind of tie this up so we can move on to the next part because I want to hear about what y'all are nerding out about. But I think coaching, like more than we think, it's more about communication and how we handle
Hmm.
social situations and emotional intelligence and like just asking all the right questions. And so I appreciate you both kind of sharing that because this is a conversation again that just I don't hear talked about. And so it's like the less sexy side of coaching, but having the difficult
Hmm.
conversations. Um, but on another note, I want to hear about what both of y'all are learning about right now. So, Phil, what are you learning about right now?
I'm unbelievably deep on assessment and monitoring. So
Mm,
working on a new iteration, myself and my incredible colleagues, on a new iteration of the Exos Phase 3 mentorship. So, and hopefully building out a Exos sports science course in the future. But basically digging in as much as I can about assessment and monitoring. And honestly, some of this was sparked from the show. Some of this, I mean, this is always kind of the plan for the course and design of the course. You know, we started thinking about this about a year ago, but some of it was from Tim Karen, an episode we did with Tim Karen, who I've always looked up to and love all the stuff that he puts out. But he mentioned something. Transitioning from working with collegiate sector, collegiate football with Army West Point, and now working just only with Gen Pop folks at his gym in LA. Like in the collegiate sector, you have to show improvement or you can. In Gen
mm,
Pop, you can operate off vibes alone
yeah.
and be a super successful gym, or you can operate on failure and have like just a bunch of people sign up and not canceling their membership and have a super successful business, right? It's insane. So he's like, we have to be better than that. And that's kind of been really challenging to me because looking back over my career, it's something that I haven't done really well is show objective improvement on a couple different levels and consistently do it. And it's easy to sit and make excuses like, oh, I don't have force plates or I don't have, my clients come in inconsistently. Like, no, like what can we actually do to objectively show improvement for a lot of our clients, for a lot of our athletes? So going really deep on nerding out on all things about assessment, whether it's for movement abilities like range of motion or your coordination, um, force velocity profiling, or minimally just like looking at how you interact with the ground from a force perspective, assessing your movement skill abilities, monitoring how you show up, readiness, all of that. So that's been fun to say the least. It's been fun experimenting with different tools and different tests and all of that stuff, and just seeing how things feel and seeing how they work practically. And hopefully in a few months' time, be able to start putting stuff out that allows people to objectively show improvement for their members. And I think like that's one thing that we minimally should do. Like one, I think it differentiates us in the market. Like as a coach, it'll differentiate you. But two, it's like help hold yourself and others accountable. Like let's actually get better in some way, shape, or form, and not just keep running on the hamster wheel of training where it's like, I want to lose weight. I train at one place for a while. I kind of burn out. I stop. Then 3 months later, I want to lose weight. I go to a different place. I kind of train for a while. Don't see objective improvement. I kind of burn out and stop and just keep going and doing that and doing that and doing that and doing that basically forever.
Right. I love that. Is that like a specific course you're learning from, or is this like a bunch of different things that you're pulling from?
It's a bunch of different things.
Okay.
A bunch of different random things. Some of it is like some of the principles, like looking at data science and data management, which I don't know a ton about. So that's like NSCA, sports science textbook. Some of it's just from talking to coaches and seeing what do you do, like what's your process for intake, what's your process for reassessment, just to see like practically what folks are doing. Because there's not a lot of literature on that. But then it's just reading a lot of research and seeing like what's validated, and then kind of putting that up against what are people doing to get a similar outcome. Because like it's hard to run a validated test. Like I think it's funny, like especially in the corporate fitness world and in the private sector world, it's like everyone wants to see like all these like validated tests and perfect results, and then they give everyone like no resources to do that. So it's like, how can we, do the quote unquote arts and crafts and come up with a makeshift test, but something that gives like good information, control. We can control, limit variables or control for more variables, limit noise, and yeah, like actually again, show improvement. But yeah, a lot of random papers, a lot of random articles, a lot of random conversations to try to pull a bunch of stuff together.
Well, I can't wait for this course to come out. Putting that on my list.
Put that on the radar.
Putting it out into the world too. What about you? GT?
Nothing as cool as Phil is learning about, honestly.
Stop it. You gotta be nice to your show. You gotta be nice to yourself on the show.
No, I think for me, I'm always trying to learn both the art of coaching and the actual X's and O's of coaching. Like, how do I continually show and understand the value of both? That's why the articles that we do every week is a really nice place for us to do that. As you might notice, like sometimes we kind of go into mindset, sometimes we just kind of go straight into the X's and O's, and we understand that both are important, right? I want to be continuing to communicate both in a very high value way to make sure those are not being undervalued in any way, right? Like what Phil said, you can operate on vibes, but you shouldn't. You can operate on like a lot of X and O's, but you shouldn't. Like there's always in the middle. And how do you operate at a high level for understanding both as you continually learn? Still the old Mark V.
I was gonna say, right? Bro, you hit the old.
How do you now just like lock in where you see the gap? So to kind of answer your question, I need both.
Did you see those hearts?
I need both. Those are tough. How do you do that?
How did you do that?
I don't know. We gotta cut this though. I don't know how that. There you go.
We're not cutting that.
Who did this, Apple? Who at Apple was like, this makes me I'm so passionate about this. I had this rant before. Who at Apple decided that this was going to be a thing? They just want to derail meetings. Don't take this away, Apple.
Every time.
JT, I'm sorry, but if y'all are listening, if y'all are watching, you should watch this. It goes on YouTube. Phil just had hearts come out of his hands. Like, I didn't know that was. Are you on your phone?
I am.
Yeah. Is it? Maybe it's because we're on our phone. That's why. Oh. Because I had my thumbs up show up earlier, I think.
Yeah, we use our
my
phone
computer. I'm on my computer like an idiot. I'm like, why is mine not working? Okay, carry on.
No, just to kind of go back on the note. I mean, it's going back and forth both, and most recently, having my vertical jump class that I've been um, leading all last year. That's pretty much where my mind's been on. And then most recently, have my foot, right, my Achilles.
Mm,
I'm just basically learning everything about it, the rehab process. Even before this, honestly, too. Like I was even learning about the Achilles tendon before I had the injury, which is kind of
Mm,
funny. But now I'm understanding a little bit more about the mechanisms and um, yeah, there's a lot that's kind of like in my brain. I think that's the problem too. But I'm trying to find a better way to organize my learnings because, as we all know, content is everywhere. There's
yeah.
yep.
so many things to learn, and it's just a matter of like, what are the actual things that we should be focusing on now,
Mm,
or the things that we want to be focusing on now. Because if you focus on everything, you're not going to focus on anything. So, like for
Gosh,
me,
that's
I'm
so
I'm trying to
true.
lock in on like the important things because my attention is very, very, very minimal.
I could not agree more what you just said, JT. But I want to get into what happened about your Achilles. Like, how did that happen? Are you okay with
Ah,
talking about it? Is it too
yeah,
soon?
yeah. No, no.
Okay.
Even after, like, it's been one of those things where I don't want to downplay the injury, but it for me when it happened, it was like, what's next? Like, I didn't really care. If it's kind of weird to say that, but it was like, okay, I'm being on crutches, got to go to surgery. Like these are just the things that need to be done.
mm,
And I just started to absorb people's emotions naturally because like, oh, I'm so sorry, which I appreciate everybody's like thought behind that. But for me, when it happened, I was like, this is what I got to do. So, um, the to answer your question, I'm okay with talking about it. I talk about it a lot on Instagram just because it, my hope is to inspire others to
mm,
to
Mm-hmm.
know what they can do, right? Know what they should be doing next or what they can be doing next in order to get to where they want to be at the end of the day. And a lot of us get stuck, and I understand. Like I've been there. There's a barrier. I'm not gonna say small, but there's a barrier in front of us, and we don't all have the strength or skills or willpower to overcome that. So
mm,
we
Mm-hmm.
look we look to people who have done it, and like I see Kobe, right? There's a reason why I did feel like that. It's because I learned from his same exact injury. So, yeah, hopefully my story will now give others the skills, the knowledge, the willpower to just overcome their
mm.
barrier and whatever they have in front of them.
I have to say, like it again, being vulnerable. You're being very open and personal about something that happened to you, and that is absolutely an inspiration to other people, even if they don't tell you. That's one thing I've learned. It's like there's gonna be people lurking, looking, not even liking your stuff, or saying anything to you, but you're impacting way more people than you even know, JT, by being open about this and being positive about it because it's so easy when shit does not go your way or like an inconvenience pops up and it's easy to be the victim. It's easy to slip into the victim mentality. So the fact that you have such a open and positive mindset, it's it's inspiring to me. Like I didn't tear my Achilles and like whenever I have something pop up, I get all sad and then I'm like, but JT's over here just scooting around, like
Scooting.
crushing it. Crushing
Walking.
it. Walking.
I saw
See,
you put
look
I
at
saw you
that.
put both feet down the other day.
Boy, gates are
Exciting as
open.
hell.
Let's
Gates
Gates are
open,
go.
open.
baby. Turn them
Um,
up.
and to go back to that note, like I don't want to downplay anybody's injury, right? And I don't.
Mm,
Right.
Injury is an injury, and I'm trying to do a better job of like that. I don't know. For me, like when I see other people's injury, like Achilles is not that bad for me. Like maybe I shouldn't make it seem like a big deal. Like people lose stuff. People like people's lives change forever. I'm what 7 weeks. I'm walking like you know that's cool. But then
mm,
there's other things where it's like I think we should just appreciate that injuries are injuries. Everybody's lives are different. Like if I had kids that I had to take care of, like maybe I'd be more, like shit. sad, and that's why people are sad, because there's more things that are affecting them. So I don't want to say like this is how people should feel from an injury, because you should feel the way whatever way you're feeling. But for me, it didn't affect much of what I can do, where I know that if people's Achilles do tear and they got 5 kids, they got 2 kids, whatever, they have things more that they're responsible for that will affect that. That's hard. There's a lot of challenges there, and it's a matter of understanding what those challenges look like, and now what are the steps that you need to take for yourself in order to still be okay with feeling sad, and now take those steps. So it's a tough thing to communicate over social media, and at the end of the day, barriers are barriers. People's realities are truths, and how do we just do a better job of like making sure some people's truth that they say in there are probably not truth, and some people's realities like, yeah, maybe that's true. So not to go off on a tangent there, but it's an interesting thing I've been thinking about in terms of like pain, injuries, victim mentality, and it's hard without having a one-on-one conversation with somebody. It's really hard to communicate that effectively, and validating people's actual lives and how they can take that step.
Absolutely. Well, I can only, I'm very excited to watch your progress and see you get back into the vertical jump stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think, you should be able to feel sad, but like you said, and everyone's situation's different and what they have on their plate is different. But again, you are a figure to somebody who needs it right now. So just wanted to put that out there.
Hey, I
Show
appreciate
love.
it.
Gotta show love.
Show love. That's what I do
Show
here
love.
for you. I show love to my people on this show.
JT inspiring. I
Yeah,
tell
get
him
out
every
here.
day.
You
Appreciate
got to. You got to. Well, before we end the show, because I could talk to y'all all day.
Same.
I wanted to ask both of you this question, and so it's, what is one piece of advice that you could give your younger self, or somebody else? But what is one piece that like younger Phil, younger JT needed, and now you can tell them?
This is a good question. I thought about this. This has consumed my morning. I've gone back and forth a couple different things. I think what I settled on was to be more intentional and seek out more mentors. Some of it, if I'm being completely honest with myself, some of it was because I thought I knew it all, so I wouldn't seek out a ton of mentorship, which I think stunted my career growth, especially early on. So in that, I think it's how can you get as much feedback as possible from people who are doing what you want to be doing, or people who are doing what you're already doing but at a higher level, or doing certain things better than you are. And then realizing that feedback does not define you or your worth as a person. But that feedback just is what it is, right? It's someone's appraisal of your ability in that moment, but it does not define who you are as a coach. It does not define who you are as a person. But I think if you really want to rapidly learn and grow, you have to reflect and get feedback, whether it's on yourself to yourself, but I think more importantly from a mentor figure, from another colleague, like giving you feedback on your coaching, on your programming, and like they're gonna give like there's not everything is you have to act on, but I think it's just helpful to hear from more voices about what you're doing, and that's only going to make you a better coach, and only going to help you serve the people that you work with. So yeah, seek out better mentors, or seek out more mentors more intentionally, and get as much feedback as possible.
Boom. I agree.
That's a
Me
tough one.
too.
Getting feedback is as a
Tough.
younger Phil, what's it gonna do to you?
Yeah, right.
Oh man, that's a good one. I like that. For me, I think what I would tell my younger self is, don't try to be happy. Don't try to be successful. Wins or losses don't matter.
I love it. Just straight
And
savage.
like, because those are all end goals, right? Those are things that we think are end goals, and the goal is learning. The goal is growing, right? Just make more mistakes, learn from them.
Be
What's
more in
next?
the moment.
Yeah. So
JT pulling up so stoic today. I like it.
that's
I
where
love
my
it.
mind
I
is, man.
know.
That's
I
where my
like it.
mind is, man.
He's Stoic Sunday.
Stoic Sunday.
Stoic Sunday.
Hashtag that
It
one
is
for you,
Sunday,
JT.
isn't it?
I think so. I wasn't 100% when I said that.
I don't know where I am anymore, what day it is, so
We're locked in. We're locked
we're
in.
locked in. Well, y'all, I appreciate you spending your Sunday morning with me. I guess, Phil, it's probably afternoon for you. But, these podcasts, they get done on the hours we're not working. And
Yeah.
so thank you all. I thank y'all
Thanks
both
for saying
for, thank Yins for being here
Thank you.
on your time off. Yeah, thank Yins. But thank you for being here on like your time off, like your weekend. This is your you time. It means a lot to me, and just the value you guys put out into the world. I appreciate more than you know. And if you ever need a hype up, please text me.
Of
We're
course.
definitely
I
going to
will
take you up
hype.
on that.
You should.
Yeah, this is
100%.
definitely me time because we definitely talked about ourselves. So thanks for having us on the show. It's not every day we get to
Seriously.
do that. Really, like rarely ever.
That's-
So we appreciate what you're doing. Like you forget to, you mentioned you're if not you are in the 1% too, right? You've been doing this before we did.
I mean, I guess so. This is like my second time around, though. So if you want to combine everything, I've probably done like 30 podcasts
Go count it.
ever.
So major props to you.
Major
we're
props. Hell yeah.
inspired by you too, and keep doing what you're doing, inspiring others with what what you feel your experience and all that stuff. So you're seeing, and like you got to keep doing what you're doing. And I saw that
100%.
that's that you're speaking in a NSCA conference. So that's
Yeah.
so that's big
That's
too.
bomb. I did
So
not see that. Hell yeah.
let's go.
I'm very excited. It's on streamlining your movement assessments. So I'm pretty
Hell
excited.
yeah. Let's go.
Pretty
Love that.
nervous. And I'm just like, who am I to be doing this? Because I know there's other people who are like more scientific than I am. But it'll be a great experience regardless.
And there will always be. And there will
Yeah,
always
that's
be.
true. There will always be.
Yeah.
But you're up there. They're not. So lock it in.
Talk to him.
Lock
Lock
it in.
in.
JT, let him know. Let him know.
So I appreciate you. I appreciate the hype up. Mutual respect here.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
All right. Peace out.
All right. Thanks, Emma.
All right. Thanks, Emma.